Hi everyone, I'm Suchit and I'll be talking on Ember.js. How many of you have heard of Ember.js? Cool, that's a lot, that's good. I'm a dev with ThoughtWorks. Been working with ThoughtWorks. I just work both on backend and frontend side. So ThoughtWorks is a small, it's a services-based company. So we do projects from all around the globe there. So before jumping into Ember.js, I'll just give you small context in terms of what we were working on. So we were working for one of the largest property valuation firms in Australia, and we were building a valuation engine for them. So we were rebuilding their existing system that they were using in Lotus Notes on web. They wanted to build a single page app for that. And it had lots of forms, wizards, workflows, maps integration, image carousel, modules, and a lot of other things, right? What we wanted, so we wanted to build a single page app. We had a team which had a fair experience on Ruby on Rails. So we had a good advanced skill on that, but on building single page applications, we were not really confident enough, because we've seen that for big applications, it can really go messy. It can go messy, and it's difficult to maintain and add. So we're looking for some framework which could actually guide us in the right direction, which actually forces us to use things in a proper way, and forces good design principles there. And we were looking to build something modular and robust. We decided on Ember.js. So Ember.js is I think most of you already know, it's a client-side MVC framework. It's based on your model view controller design pattern. It's specifically designed for single-page web applications. It's more of convention over configuration. So it's very heavily inspired from Rails, if anyone who've worked on Rails. When I say convention over configuration, I mean that you don't need to manually wire up things there. So if you're following a set of guidelines and principles in your names, files are present in correct places, it automatically injects those things in your application. And there was very good support for Ruby on Rails on that. There were gems which were utilizing your Rails asset pipeline, and building and everything was inbuilt. And it also had an adapter for active model serializer, which we were using for our backend APIs. So who's using, so we thought that it will give us some confidence, because we were working for the first time. Ember was in very initial stages. It was pre-beta around a year and a half back. Ember data was changing very rapidly at that point in time. But we thought, okay, if people are able to do it, we should be able to do it. We were quite confident. Before going into the MVC part, I'll just briefly talk about the object model it has. So Ember has out-of-the-box support for objects, instances, inheritance, and composition. And it made our life really simple, because our team was not really very good on the JavaScript side, but they were good on the Ruby side. So we wanted some design principles which could guide us to use things properly there, right? So for example, all objects in Ember inherit from one base object called as ember.object, and it gives you some basic set of functionalities such as create, destroy, extend. You can add observers. This is how you will define a very simple object in Ember, and then you can use get and set methods to access the properties. Inheritance is also very straightforward. You can use extend method provided in the object class, and then you can just create an instance of this class. So if I am creating a person object here, I'm defining the object here with some attributes and method, and here I'm actually creating an instance of this person object, right? And I can just use it like just any other JavaScript object. The advantage is that it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of defining the behavior. If you want your code to be less messy, and if you are following single responsibility principle, then this makes you really easy for you to put things at places where it matters. So you'll not be putting everything in one place. Similarly, has a relationship with mixins. It has a mixin class built in, so you can actually include different classes. the functionality. So one very good example here is, so we had a lot of components like text boxes, drop down list, and a lot of UI components, and since we had a lot of forms there, right? So we created one focusable mixin, which was basically listening on events for focus in, change, and focus out. So if you see here, there is a change. So to listen to an event, it's very straightforward. You just remove the on and define a method with the name of the event. So if you are looking for on change, you'll just define an event called as, a method called as change, and this will automatically be called whenever that field changes. So if you see here, we are calling this.valid there, which means that if whenever we wanted to add validations to any of our field, like you see here, this side, we'll just include this mixin. So for us, if we had to add a validation, we'll just include this mixin and just add in a valid method, which was basically dealing with the core business logic. So we had text fields wherein you cannot enter values more than 5 million. This value will basically check that. You had num fields and a lot of other fields. So this made our life really easy. Your core event handling is done in one place, and your business logic or whatever you're operating on the values is actually segregated. So this makes your code really modular and simple to understand and extend also. Cool. So coming to computed properties. So what are computed properties in Ember? So most of the time you'll have to so basically they are just functions which can be used in your templates as JavaScript properties. So I'll show an example after this, but for you can see here I've created a person object here with some first name and last name. But now on the UI, what I want to do is I want to show a full name, and so this could be something coming from your backend servers, right? If your server is giving you data in one format and you want to display it on some other format, you will have to process that data at some place and display it. So this is for that. You just have to define a dot property on that. The method argument it is taking is basically adding an observer on your attributes there. So for example, whenever if you want a behavior like whenever my first name changes, your method should be able to recompute and change should automatically be visible on your UI. So that everything is automatically handled here. So you just define a property and observe on first name. So if you see, I've created an object here, and if I say get, I'm using, instead of calling a method, I'm just using a property here, and I can just use it directly in my templates. So it made our life really simple. For example, if you had to do something on your drop down and you had to show some other behavior on some like action, then we just add a property which was observing that particular thing, and then UI automatically refreshed. So it was giving two-way binding out of the box. Observers are also very similar, but instead of using on the UI, they are just triggered when some property changes. So they're just like a normal methods. I'm not sure if you can see it properly, but here you can see, 1 minute. You can see here that I've defined one object here. So I'm using JSBin for Ember.js. It comes out of the box. So if you go here, it gives you basic bare bone setup with all the libraries included, and you can start directly writing your code, creating your demos. So it's a very easy way to do that. So if you see here, right, I am actually creating a person method here, and I have created an observer name changed, which is observing my first name here. So whenever my first name is changed, this observer will be called and it will log something. So if I run this thing, right, it's very simple. I'm using a set operator here to set the first name. So this I'm doing it manually, but normally what will happen is if a user is entering anything on a text box, it will be automatically bound to that, and this observer will be automatically triggered. So you're not actually writing code wherein you're adding event listeners, removing that, adding methods on top of that. It is very modular, and it's very easy to understand for a person who's for the first time working on single page web applications. Coming to the model view controller pattern that Ember follows. So you can see that there are a lot of components here. So Ember has a very highly opinionated framework in place, wherein it has defined every component and it has defined very clear set of roles and responsibilities for every component. So we'll talk in more detail about everyone, but every component. But if you see, model basically deals with communicating with your backend APIs. So it basically automatically serializes, deserializes your data, so you don't have to work with JSON. You always work in JavaScript objects. Router is monitoring your URL pattern and maintaining your application state. Controller is providing that state to your views and templates. So it is wrapping model, it is maintaining its own state, and it is making that state available to your views and templates, and it gives you two-way binding out of the box there. So you don't have to write anything there. If you just use it, it is automatically bound to the UI. So as I said, it maps out each of the application state into hierarchical structures. It translates URLs into nested templates. We'll see example in coming slides. And it updates your controller model and makes it available to your templates there. So how do you define a route in Ember? It's very straightforward. In your router.js, you just define a resource. So resource is basically representation of a RESTful resource. So when you define a resource called as post, Ember automatically will create post controller, post route, and a post template, which will by default be empty, right? So even if you've not created anything, it automatically creates out of the box for you. And if you have to change any set of functionalities, you just override that. Similarly, if you can see here that there is an index controller, index template, and an index route. So by default, your JSON, you can work with WebSockets, you can work with IndexedDB, and everything is transparent. You just have to change your adapter. And the same things will work over WebSocket, the same thing will work over IndexedDB. It has concept for store. Store is basically an identity map. It's a caching layer which is already built into your application, so you don't have to write anything. It is in memory, it is in browser, and whenever you make a request, it goes through your store and it caches. So if it's present in your store, it will return you that particular object. If it's not present, it will basically make a call to your backend, get you the response, serialize, deserialize that particular JSON into your model objects, and give that particular model object to you. This is how a normal backend model will look like. For example, a person has a first name and a birthday. You can provide in the type here. It is used in deserializing into normal model objects. You can also have relationship between your models. So for example, if you are designing your schema, you can actually have relationship between them. For example, here I'm saying that my order has many line items. Similarly, an line item belongs to an order. So very similar to that. Coming to data adapters. Data adapters basically govern that what kind of convention you are following when you are talking to backend. So as you can see here, there's one route here, and I am telling store to find me a photo with one specific ID. So what will happen is that when I write this statement, the store will look in its identity map that if my photo with this specific ID is already present, if it's present, it will return that. Otherwise, it will make a RESTful call. By default, Ember comes with a REST adapter, which means that it follows your REST convention. So if your API is written following your REST rules, it just plugs into your API and it can deserialize it properly. So find me a photo with particular ID, it will make a call /photos/ID there. It will make a get call. Similarly, I can use find all. Find all will make a get call to /post, and it will expect an array of my photos. Update, create, and delete. So I can use any of them and then change my model. So I don't have to write my $.ajax calls and then wait for my response and change it like that. I always deal with my models. I'll always say photo.update the properties and then photo.save, and that's it. So this is again, it just tells you that your response, it can sideload your relationships. So my photo has many comments. So I'm just including ID of comments, and in my response I am sending comments also. So you don't have to make calls for every relationship. You can sideload all of those relationships in one calls. So you can see here, this is a live example of your Ember data. I have one model called as topic, which has many posts, right? So again, this is the model for post. Here, so one good thing that it's already providing you with features so that you can test all these things. So currently instead of using the REST adapter, I'm using a fixture adapter here. Fixture adapter basically doesn't make calls to your backend. It just returns you the data in your app fixture, and it becomes very handy when you are testing your application. So whenever in my model, if I'll say this.store.find.topic, it'll return me these fixtures, and it'll automatically deserialize it in my model. And in my templates, if you look, I'll be directly able to use all these things out of the box, and it gives you, and it is bound to that template. So if I change my fixtures, if I change anything in my data here, that change will be automatically reflected and in my UI. So if it's already bound to your model. So so what flexibility is giving you is that you're making call to your backend, you're getting a response, and your model is already bound to your UI. You don't have to write anything for that, and it's very easy to understand as well. So coming to the last part, the testing support. So testing is very core part of Ember. So if you want to test, since your application is already modular, you're following all the MVC principles, in any case your application becomes really testable. But it gives you very good support for your integration and unit test. By default, it uses QUnit for your as a testing framework, but it fits in really well with Jasmine and other test frameworks as well. I'll give you two examples for what we did was with testing. So here you can see that I'm using QUnit here, and I'm actually writing my functional test. So you would have used Cucumber or Spinach or JBehave or something to write your functional test, right? And those functional tests take a lot of time to load up, boot up. So what I'm doing here is that, if you can see, I'm actually I'm visiting my post.new URL. Then I'm filling in my input with my new post. There's a text box there. I'm filling in my input title as my new post, and then I'm clicking on my submit button. This is all asynchronous, and it works with promises. I can straight away write that, and after this behavior is done and the promise is resolved, please check that my last post text should be equal to my new post, right? And you can see that how fast this is. This is actually blazing fast, and you can actually write your functional test really quickly in this. It's very easy to understand. Similarly, for your unit test, for example, if I have written my app here and I want to check some method in my app, I'll just add my application and create something. I'll set some property on the method I want to check, and then I'll see that since if you see, the computed property is observing my foo, right? So whenever I change my foo, it should actually return me computed foo, right? So that is what I'm testing here. I've created an object. I'm setting my foo here, and my computed foo should automatically be called and recomputed, and it should be same as computed this thing. So the testing makes your life really easier. It gives you a lot of confidence in your code, and yeah. So this was it. Any questions you have?
Hi. Yeah. Do you have any regrets about choosing Ember.js?
For us, it's been fairly good experience for us. Our application was actually really extensible. So we were working with clients in such a manner that we had to change. Whenever if client told that we'll be using this particular strategy, we'll just change out this whole part for your application. That introducing that change was very easy for us. So it gave us a good flexibility in terms of adding new changes, manipulating and maintaining the code.
Did you look at Angular and all before?
But we chose Angular over Ember, so it was more modular. We thought that it was more modular. So this fight will never end, Angular versus Ember, but it totally depends on the philosophy you are following. For us, it was a very good fit because we were using Rails as our backend, and it was fitting in really well for us. And we really were bought into the object model philosophy it was having. And for us, reusing a lot of components out of the box with mixins and inheritance was a good deal. So.
Hi, are you using Ember CLI or what exactly is the from the application?
I didn't get that.
So, are you using Ember Applicate or CLI or basically you are doing the Rails path of like getting the front end tooling done?
Yeah, so we were not using Ember CLI, we were using something. So there's a good plugin for Rails called as Ember Rails, which gives you generators, it generates all of the files, it gives you development support, it's already optimized for your asset pipeline, so you're using that, not anything.
And what about Ember Data? Are you using it or you are using?
Yeah, so we've been using Ember Data for more than 8-9 months now, and we thought that it was really great, and it gave us a very good flexibility because our team was fairly new in terms, and when we were working with objects, so it was really powerful for us. It saved a lot of time. The code was not complex at all because we were communicating, so we had a very complex schema which we were modeling in terms of evaluating some properties. So Ember Data made that thing very clear because every class was having its own set of responsibilities and all those relationships were built in. So we were not writing everything in one place and then making a post call to save that. It was all modular.
So, I mean, being in beta didn't matter in that way, right?
Yeah?
It's still in beta, right? So
Yeah, it's still in beta, but we didn't find anything very. So the problem which we faced initially was we even picked Ember Data when it was pre-beta. So at that point in time, the APIs were changing fairly quickly. So we had to rewrite some components because the names create record change, like create change to create record and some other things. But now I think it's fairly stable and we are using it in prod.
thank you.